Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Mary. How are you today? So today we are going to talk about um, making changes, like big changes. If you listen to my intro, a lot of you know me as the Crafty Witch over Crafty Witch Ways. This is not those kind of videos. We're not going to be talking products and things like that. I do a lot of sustainability talk there and things, but there's a lot of things I want to talk about that I don't feel necessarily fit in that space. Or there might be things that like cross over, but we'll talk more about them on this channel from a personal perspective. So this is more a little bit of a background video as well as my plan for 2025. I'm going to take you back to a terrible time in history, the Big C, right? Big C, um, where it just rocked the nation and kind of like debilitated a lot of things. Everything came to a standstill and life wasn't the same, right? There's some good things that did come out of that, but there's some things that took a couple of years to realize. Um, so when the sea hit, um, I was working and I was lucky enough to be one of the people who could work remotely. It wasn't a terrible thing, um, for me or my husband. I jumped on the mask making bandwagon because I had some fabric in my house and I had sewing skills. Sewing was not something that I did on a regular basis. Um, I made blankets for friends, like baby blankets and things like that, but it was more designed as a little hobby for gifts. It wasn't something I did regularly. It was actually a card maker at the time. So I had a lot of paper and a lot of ink, which did not help anybody during COVID at all. Um, it got to a point where, I was up hours at night sewing, making masks for people who needed them. And I was running out of fabric. It was probably a year into it, and it was like, what are we gonna do when we don't have any more fabric? The stores weren't open. Um, we were already using whatever we could find. Now I did have a small stash, but to tell you the truth, it was really a lot of like kid prints, and it was a lot of florals and geometrical designs, and some of that worked for masculine masks, but some of it didn't. And I got to the point where I could no longer provide masculine masks unless they were okay with, you know, bright colors and whatnot. And some people just weren't. Um, or they were the same as like 100 other masks that I made because that's the fabric that I had. So, there was this like internal trigger that came from that I didn't realize until like a couple of years later. So we ended up getting back into the office working. Um, Stores started opening up, and it was like an oh, yay, a mass like run to the store because even though stores were open, um, we still had to make masks. We still had to do it. People still needed them. The stores had overstock. They had massive stocks of fabric, and it was super cheap because they wanted you to come back. And I happily did so regularly. A good thing that did come out of that, like it helped me realize like sustainability. I was already borderline sustainable before that. Um, but when you couldn't get anything and you didn't have anything, it was very eye-opening on um, what could you do to make what you have work and how can you reduce the disposable stuff because you couldn't get it. Couldn't get it. You just couldn't go out and get it. So that really triggered my sustainability aspect of my life, and that's where Crafty Witch Ways was built from that. I closed my card business and opened up that business early 2021. But fast forward to like 2023 and realizing that I went from not having any fabric to having a house full of it, to the point where it was like, where am I going to put it? And in end of 20, like the middle of 2022, I started to really focus on myself. Um, I'd had some health issues prior to the seed. The seed did not help. I did get it during when my daughter went to college for the first year. So it was a thing. Like I started a journey and ended up really focusing on myself and trying to get back into a regular routine. But I still had this obsession with buying all the fabrics. I had a fabric business now, right? Like I was making things out of fabric, whether it was cotton or flannel or other things. I was making all of the things, right? I was part of a nonprofit that was making things for charities, and I still am part of that nonprofit. It's a wonderful nonprofit, but so I was justifying in my head that I should buy all this stuff because I need it, right? And it took me into 2024 realizing that I was suffering from scarcity syndrome and I really needed to figure out a way to reduce that. So during 2024, I did make a conscious effort not to buy as much fabric. I mean, I went from having none in 2020 to having like a house full. Like, I'm not kidding, a lot. I have so much fabric, I'll never use it in a lifetime. So in 2024, I focused on reducing the amount of fabric I was buying. I still bought it. I still did. And, up until July of 2024, I was working a full-time job. But then I retired in July. So it was really hard for me to focus on that the first half of the year. Like I wasn't buying stuff. I was going through all the stuff I had and saying, I'm not going to use this one, and like either donating it or selling it off or, downsizing what I had, but I was replacing it with new stuff. And I realized that when I got into the second half of 2024, like it wasn't getting any better. Stuff was going out, but stuff was coming in. And I had to like really focus on, like, I identified the problem. I was trying to solve the problem. I ended up creating a new problem, and that was yarn. So not only do I have a fabric obsession, I do have a yarn obsession as well. So 2024 was about using your stash with the nonprofit, and that went well. I was using my stash, but I was also replenishing it on occasion. Not as much as I was the year before, but was still doing it. And then for my side business, I started doing inspirational jewelry. So I now have a bead collection that you can't see because it's over there in a corner and it's crazy. Which brings me to, what am I doing for 2025? So to help with combating my scarcity syndrome, the fear of missing out, whatever you want to call it. I mean, so for 2025, I'm doing a low buy, no buy year in an effort to make a drastic cut in my scarcity syndrome to help me heal that part of my journey. So, I've been following a YouTube content creator. Her name is Immy, Immy Lucas. And I watched a video in December around this low buy, no buy um, year that she is doing. I just love her channel. She put out a book, which I got and I'm reading. She went through her plan of how to plan for a low buy, no buy year. So I did the same. I went through and kind of decided that I was going to put some rules in place around um, what I would allow myself to buy and what I wouldn't, and when I would allow myself to buy things. Not to the same extent that she did hers, because hers was a little bit of a financial um, twist to it, right? But for me, it was more about minimizing stuff, right? So my husband and I are, trying to declutter our house. because we're hoping to move. Once he retires, we're going to move abroad. So, in order to help with the scarcity and all of that, I went through and I did my plan, right? So for 2025, I will not be buying any fabric. I'm going to use what I have, and I'm also going to go through what I have and decide if I'm not going to use it, it's got to go, right? Like if it doesn't have a plan to it, it's got to go. Because I do use a lot of that fabric in my business. So I am doing a whole separate process for that one because I am shifting my business to a different product line and product base. It will still be Crafty Witch Ways, but it will be sustainability, self-empowerment, and um, more focused on my foundational framework that I created for that business called the Infinite Collaboration of the Soul. But for this channel, it is no more fabric because I've got plenty. So fabric, yarn. I have more than enough yarn to last me a lifetime as well, especially cotton yarn. And then beads, jewelry making stuff. So when I say beads, I mean a lot of beads. I have so much, and I love beads. They're so pretty, gemstones, crystals, everything. I always say I'm going to do this with it, I'm going to do that with it. And I never get to it because I'm so overwhelmed with trying to keep it all organized. As you can see, this room is pretty cluttered. I've got stuff everywhere. So my goal is by showing you all of this that it holds me accountable to clean it up and clean it out and use it up. So no yarn, no fabric, no beads until what I have is gone. So like if I'm making earrings and I don't have ear wires anymore because I used all of them, then I'll buy ear wires, right? And the concept is to buy what I need, not buy what I love. So those are three things from my crafting perspective that I'm definitely not buying this year until it's gone. And to tell you the truth, I probably will not be done with it this year. So those will probably be running into 2026 as well. I went out and I canceled all of my subscriptions. And then the other thing that I'm doing is using what I have in my pantry. Um, with the sea, I did go through a stocking. Um, I don't even know what they call it because of that whole scarcity syndrome. Um, where like if you can't go to the grocery store, like people do the stocking. There's a word for it and I can't think of it right now. But um, I have a storage space in my basement that has shelving for food and stuff, and I have a lot of pasta, and I have a lot of sauce, and I have a lot of canned goods, and I have a lot of things, right? And I have a pantry upstairs. I have a lot of stuff. I have a chest freezer filled with frozen things. I don't eat meat, so it's not meat. It's like all fruit and frozen fruit and things like that. Like it's stuff that I don't need to stock as much as I do. So we are going to do a clean out the pantry and use that for at least the first quarter of 2025 and then reevaluate where we want to go with how much food we want to stock um, going forward. What else? What else? So the main rule is going to be use what you have and buy it when it's gone and there's no other substitutes for it in the house. So if we wanted pasta but we don't have any more, which is funny, um, then it's quinoa, right? Or it's rice until that's gone. And just using it up. My goal for 2025 is not only to heal my purchasing problem, but to also heal my relationship with food. So I'm going to be diving into holding myself accountable a little more with that and hoping that that will help others as well if they're struggling with that. Oh, and other thing I'm not buying in 2025, I just saw my note on it as I looked down, outside of yarn, fabric, and beads, is tea bags. I love tea, love it. I buy a lot of tea. I have a whole cabinet in my kitchen filled with tea bags, loose leaf tea, tea that I've gotten at special places, teapots, teacups. it's an obsession. I collected teapots for a while, so I am going to be downsizing some of those as well because I don't need 8 teapots, right? And there's like actually a kettle that I'd rather have. I'm gonna do like a little bit of selling off some so I can buy another. So like that's another strategy that if there's something I use but I want a different version of it because sometimes our tastes change or we learn more or whatnot. So it's to buy a new one, you have to get rid of the old one. Like you can't just keep it. Like I wanted to upgrade my food processor. I had food processor from like 2010. It still worked, but it was older and I wanted something newer. So to do that, I bought the new one and got rid of the old one. I donated it. But you have to you can't just keep holding on to it. So if I bring something in, something has to go out. Um, that's another rule for 2025 as well. Um, I would love to hear if you're doing a no buy 2025 or where you struggle in your current situation that maybe you'd like to see some pointers or tips or tricks or some advice on. Have I, if I've gone through that, I'll help you out. If I haven't gone through it, I'll research it for you and help you out. Um, I do a lot of research in the mental health space as well as the community space and the science space because I have taken nutrition certifications and all of that, so I understand the body enough that I could provide some information, but never medical advice. I always suggest you go to your medical practitioner and discuss any major issues with them. But if you're just struggling mentally, I'm here for you. I hold a safe space for you. There's no judgment here. I'm not judging myself. I am acknowledging my situation. I am working on releasing it and moving forward. With that, I'm going to let you go. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And see you soon.